For years, fans around the world have wondered the same thing. How could Sam Heughan, one of Hollywood's most charming, successful, and admired men, still be single? He's handsome, kind, respected, and endlessly devoted to his craft. But behind that easy smile and quiet confidence lies a story very few people know. A story of love, family, and a decision that changed his life forever. It wasn't that Sam didn't want to settle down. In fact, at one point, he came closer to marriage than anyone could imagine. Those who know him well say it began quietly. A relationship that bloomed far away from cameras, headlines, and red carpets. She wasn't a celebrity, and she didn't want to be one. She was someone who understood his world, but didn't need to live in it. She was calm, grounded, and genuine. Everything Sam had been looking for amid the chaos of fame. For a time, things were perfect. When he wasn't filming Outlander or traveling for promotions, he spent weekends with her in Scotland, enjoying quiet mornings and walks through the Highlands. Friends described that time as the happiest he'd been in years. He even began speaking about the future, a home, a family, a life beyond the screen. But then, as it often happens, the real world began to intrude. With each passing year, Sam's fame grew bigger, and so did the weight that came with it. Interviews, public appearances, constant travel, and an audience that wanted a piece of him every moment of the day. The more the world saw of Sam Heughan, the less of himself he felt he could keep private. And in the middle of that whirlwind stood the woman who loved him, patient, loyal, but slowly being consumed by the spotlight she never asked for. According to someone close to him, that was when Sam started thinking seriously about marriage. He wanted to protect her, the source said. He wanted to make it official, to build something stable and safe, away from the noise. So he did what he always does when facing a big decision. He turned to his family. It was supposed to be a happy conversation. Sam spoke with quiet excitement about the woman he loved, how she understood him, how she brought him peace. But as he spoke, he noticed the concerned look in his mother's eyes. Later, in a rare moment of honesty, he would admit. They weren't against it, but they were worried. They know what this life takes from you. His mother, a woman who had raised him with strength and simplicity in the Scottish countryside, reportedly told him something he would never forget. You give so much to everyone, Sam. The world already owns half of you. Don't give away the part that's still yours, not yet. Those words stayed with him. It wasn't about the woman. It wasn't about doubt. It was about timing, and what fame can do to love when you're not ready to fight for it fully. Sam's family knew how deeply he cared for the people he loved. But they also knew how lonely and demanding his world had become. They feared that if he rushed into marriage, he'd end up losing the very thing that made him who he was, his peace, his freedom, his soul. Friends say Sam struggled with that advice for months. He didn't want to choose between the life he'd built and the love he'd found. But deep down, he knew his family was right. He had spent years pouring himself into work, into characters, into everything the public expected him to be. But he hadn't yet learned how to give that same devotion to himself, or to someone else, without losing balance. He wanted forever, a close friend said softly. But he wasn't ready for it, not then. Eventually, Sam made the hardest decision of his life. He ended the relationship, not because he stopped loving her, but because he couldn't promise her the life she deserved. He did it quietly, respectfully, without drama or headlines. The world never knew it happened. But his family did. They saw the pain in his eyes when he came home that weekend, the quiet sadness behind his smile. In an interview years later, when asked about marriage, Sam's answer was thoughtful, almost wistful. I've come close, he said. But timing is everything. Sometimes love asks you to wait, and sometimes it asks you to let go. He didn't elaborate. He didn't need to. Those who had been there, who had watched him make that choice, knew exactly what he meant. Because sometimes, the hardest part of love isn't losing someone. It's walking away before the world forces you to. After the breakup, Sam Heughan threw himself back into work, something he had always done whenever life felt too heavy to face. On screen, he smiled. In interviews, he laughed. To the world, nothing had changed. But those who knew him best could see it, a certain stillness in his eyes, the kind that comes only from heartbreak. He never spoke publicly about the woman he almost married, and he never confirmed the story. But traces of it slipped through in subtle ways. In interviews where he'd pause before answering a question about love, in the way his tone softened whenever family was mentioned. Years later, during a quiet conversation with a journalist, Sam finally admitted, "I think I was close once. But life has its own plans. Sometimes you have to trust the people who know you best, even when it hurts." It was one of the few times he had ever acknowledged it, and it confirmed what insiders had long whispered. His family hadn't stopped him out of control or pride. They had done it out of love. Those close to Sam's family described them as humble, grounded people who value loyalty, peace, and privacy above all else. They had watched Sam rise from a struggling actor in small Scottish productions to an international star. They'd seen the way fame had swallowed his schedule, his freedom, and sometimes even his sense of self. And while they were proud beyond measure, they also feared what it would cost him to bring someone else into that storm. As one relative reportedly said, "It's hard enough being Sam Heughan. It's even harder being the person who loves him." That was the truth behind their hesitation. They weren't against his happiness. They just wanted him to find it when the world wasn't trying to take it from him. In private, Sam wrestled with that understanding. He felt torn, grateful for his family's honesty, but haunted by what he'd lost. In his journal, he once wrote, "Love and duty rarely speak the same language." The months that followed were quiet ones. Sam returned home to Scotland whenever he could, spending time with his mother and close friends, grounding himself in the simplicity of the life he'd once known. He went hiking, volunteered, and spent long hours alone on the hills, trying to make peace with the choices that had shaped his path. It was during one of those trips that he finally understood what his family had meant. "I realized they weren't stopping me from loving," he told a close friend later. "They were stopping me from losing myself." Because they knew, better than anyone, that Sam's heart was bigger than he allowed the world to see. He gives endlessly, sometimes to the point of exhaustion. And for a man who lives in the public eye, that generosity can become dangerous. His family didn't want to see him build a marriage on empty energy or divided attention. They wanted him whole. And slowly, Sam began to see that truth as an act of protection, not interference. In one interview years later, when asked about his views on marriage, he said something that resonated deeply with fans. "I think when it happens, it'll be right. The right person, the right time, the right reason. I've learned that love doesn't need to rush. It just needs to be real." It was a sentence filled with calm acceptance, no regret, no bitterness, just wisdom. Over time, Sam's perspective on love transformed. He became more open about vulnerability, often talking about how relationships require more than passion, they require balance. In one of his book signings, he told a fan, "It's easy to fall in love. The hard part is building something that can survive the noise." Fans saw it too. There was a quiet maturity in him now, less urgency, more grace. And when asked if he still believed in marriage, he smiled and said, "Of course I do, but I also believe in being ready for it, not just because you want love, but because you're ready to protect it." Those words reflected a man who had grown through heartbreak, not been broken by it. Today, when people ask Sam about his family, his eyes light up. He calls them his compass, his reminder of where he comes from and what truly matters. And though he has never revealed the full story behind the relationship that almost led to marriage, the lesson it left behind has shaped every choice since. In the end, it wasn't a story of a family stopping love. It was a story of a family saving him from losing it too soon. As one of his closest friends once said, "Sam didn't walk away from love because he was afraid. He walked away because he finally understood that love isn't about forever. It's about timing, honesty, and knowing who you are before you give your heart away." And perhaps that's the heartbreak and the beauty of it all, that sometimes, the people who stop us are the ones who love us enough to wait until we're truly ready. Because Sam Heughan didn't lose his chance at love. He just learned that real love, the kind that lasts, waits for the man who's learned how to keep himself whole.